probably like anyone thinks about the Dalton Highway. When you first go up, you're like, oh, this ain't so bad. Everyone's talking like it's this blah, blah, blah. Then the more you go, you're like, oh, I get it now.
In the winter of 2009, a young woman from a small farm in Sterling, Alaska, climbed into an 80,000-pound rig and drove it across a frozen lake that could have swallowed her whole. Nobody knew her name yet. By the time that season of Ice Road Truckers ended, millions did. She was Lisa Kelly, the Arctic Fox, and she became one of the most unlikely breakout stars in the history of reality television. But the cameras eventually stopped rolling. The show went quiet. And just like that, she disappeared from public view. Or so people assumed. The truth, as it turns out, is far more interesting than the legend. Lisa Kelly was born on December 8, 1980, in Grand Rapids, Michigan. That detail alone surprises most people who think of her as quintessentially Alaskan, because she was not born there. She became Alaskan. When she was 6 years old, her family made the kind of decision that defines a life. They packed up everything and relocated to a small farm in Sterling, Alaska. And Alaska, as anyone who has spent real time there will tell you, does not gently welcome newcomers. It tests them. The winters are brutal, the wilderness is unforgiving, and the roads that connect communities across that vast frozen landscape are among the most dangerous on the continent. But for a young girl who would grow up to be one of the most fearless drivers in television history, Alaska was not a challenge. It was home. When she reached adulthood, she did what many young people do. She tried the conventional path. She went back to Michigan and enrolled at Cornerstone University, a small Christian liberal arts school in Grand Rapids. She lasted 1 semester. It was not a failure. It was a reckoning. Lisa Kelly understood, even then, that classrooms and textbooks were never going to be the arena where she found herself. So she went back to Alaska and began building a life that was anything but ordinary. She drove a school bus. She worked gas stations. She picked up shifts at a pizza company. None of those jobs defined her, but they all sustained her while she searched for something that actually did. What she found, in her spare time, was the dirt. She became a competitive freestyle motocross rider, a discipline that requires a specific kind of courage, the willingness to leave the ground on a machine moving at speed, trusting your body and your instincts in the fraction of a second before everything either goes right or goes terribly wrong. She became a champion in that arena, which tells you everything you need to know about her relationship with risk. To Lisa Kelly, danger was never a deterrent. It was a calling card. The world of motorcycles would also introduce her to the man she would marry. In 2004, she was buying a motorcycle when she met him, and the two of them married in 2008. But long before that wedding, she had already found the job that would change everything. Trucking. She came to it the way she came to most things, not through a grand plan, but because it looked interesting. She got hired by Carlisle Transportation, one of the largest and most respected carriers operating in Alaska. She started small, driving a delivery van, learning the rhythms of the road and the weight of a commercial load. Then she earned her commercial driver's license and worked her way upward with the quiet, methodical determination that would later become her signature on television. The assignment she eventually earned was the Dalton Highway, also known as the Haul Road, a route that stretches roughly 500 miles from Fairbanks north to Prudhoe Bay on the Arctic Ocean's edge. In winter, it is an exercise in sustained terror for the unprepared. The road cuts through wilderness so remote that if your truck breaks down in the wrong spot, the nearest human being might be 100 miles away. Temperatures can plunge to 60 below zero. Whiteout conditions can reduce visibility to nothing in minutes. And yet Lisa Kelly learned to run that road like it was second nature. She did not just survive it. She mastered it. That mastery was precisely what a television producer noticed in 2009, when the History Channel's already successful series Ice Road Truckers was looking for something it had never had before, a woman driver. The show had built a devoted audience by following a group of grizzled, experienced truckers hauling freight across frozen lakes in Canada's Northwest Territories and later along the Dalton Highway itself. The danger was real. One miscalculation, one patch of ice that was an inch too thin, and a truck weighing dozens of tons could disappear beneath the surface of a lake into water cold enough to kill a person in minutes. But the show's world was entirely male. Lisa Kelly's boss at Carlisle recommended her, and the producers took a chance on a woman who had been quietly running one of the harshest roads on Earth without anyone watching. She debuted in Season 3, and the effect was immediate. Here was someone who carried herself without bravado, who spoke plainly, who did not perform toughness but simply embodied it. Audiences connected with her in a way that surprised even the show's producers. She became, almost overnight, the breakout star of a series that already had a loyal following. Recognition arrived quickly and loudly. In 2010, Esquire magazine named her the sexiest trucker alive. She appeared as a guest on The Late Show with David Letterman. And somewhere along the way, a young producer on the show gave her a nickname that would follow her for the rest of her career and eventually become the name of her own company, the Arctic Fox. But here is the part of the story that the glossy profiles and magazine spreads left out, because it is less glamorous and far more revealing. Lisa Kelly has spoken openly about the fact that when she was first brought onto the show, she was essentially told she was there to be eye candy. And for the first 2 or 3 years of her time on Ice Road Truckers, she was not even paid by the production company. Her trucking employer, Carlisle, compensated her with a modest additional payment instead. The woman who would become the face of the entire franchise spent the early years of her television career being treated as decoration and compensated with almost nothing. She has also said, without bitterness but with complete clarity, that being a woman in that world meant the bar was perpetually higher for her. She had to work twice as hard, match the men around her in speed and output, and do it all while the industry quietly waited to see if she would falter. She did not falter. She drove harder. That determination carried her beyond the original show and into something even more extreme. Ice Road Truckers spawned a companion series called IRT Deadliest Roads, and Lisa Kelly volunteered for missions that even seasoned male drivers refused. In 2010, the production sent its drivers to India, into the Himalayan mountain passes, where the roads are not frozen lakes but narrow dirt tracks carved into the faces of cliffs, with 1,000-foot drops inches from the tires, no guardrails, no margin for error, and oncoming traffic on roads barely wide enough for a single vehicle. The conditions were so severe that multiple drivers abandoned the journey midway through. Lisa Kelly became the only North American driver to complete the entire route. The following year, she went to South America, Bolivia, and Peru to drive the infamous Death Road through the Andes, a route whose name is not metaphor but body count. She has since described what it felt like to navigate those Himalayan passes, looking out the driver's side window and seeing not road, not barrier, not anything solid, just air, dropping away into a void hundreds of feet deep. The trucks were old and underpowered, with braking systems she had never trained on. Still, she pressed forward, mile after mile, through conditions that had already defeated nearly everyone else. That is not recklessness. That is a specific and unusual kind of courage, the kind that does not shrink from what it sees but keeps moving through it anyway. Back on the Dalton Highway during the original seasons, she had moments that very nearly ended her career and her life. She once described her truck sliding backwards off a hill while she was outside chaining up the tires, forcing her to leap over a guardrail and roll down a slope as the rig went the other way. She talked about crossing questionable ice with her door open, ready to jump if she felt the surface give way beneath her. She has always been honest that reality television edits heavily and dramatizes what it finds. But she has also said plainly that the cold was real, the roads were real, and the possibility of going through the ice into the water below was absolutely and completely real. During those years on the show, she formed one of the most genuine partnerships the series produced, with fellow trucker Daryl Ward, a Montana driver whose warmth and character resonated deeply with fans. By 2015, their professional relationship had evolved into something more meaningful. Ward had started his own company, D. Ward Trucking, and brought Lisa Kelly in as a partner. They were building something real together, beyond the television cameras, beyond the edited drama of the show's narrative. And then, on August 28, 2016, Daryl Ward was killed when a small single-engine plane he was traveling in crashed near Clinton, Montana. He was 52 years old. He had just attended a trucking trade show in Dallas and was flying to Montana to film a pilot for a new project. In an instant, he was gone. Lisa Kelly has spoken about how devastating that loss was, and about the particular cruelty of grief when you have to keep working through it. When she returned to film the next season without him, the absence hit her with full force. She has said it did not truly settle in until she went back and her partner simply was not there. But she did not walk away from what he had built. She brought in Daryl's son, Reno Ward, to help her carry the company forward. She refused to let his work disappear with him. That choice revealed something essential about who she is. In November of 2017, after 11 seasons, Ice Road Truckers aired its final original episode. The show did not end with a dramatic cancellation. It simply drifted into a hiatus that stretched on and on. For most reality stars, this is the moment the story ends. The fame evaporates, the cameras move on, and the subject gradually fades into occasional nostalgia content and where are they now searches. Lisa Kelly refused to follow that arc. The critical thing to understand about her is that trucking was never a role she played for television. It was never a performance or a persona constructed for an audience. It was her actual life, her actual livelihood, and the thing she genuinely loved doing. So when the show ended, she kept driving. She stayed on the Dalton Highway, running the same brutal 1,000-mile round trip between Fairbanks and Prudhoe Bay, hauling fuel through some of the most punishing conditions in North America. Year after year, while audiences assumed she had faded into quiet civilian life, she was still out there on the ice. And then, around 2021, she took the step that every independent trucker dreams about. She relocated to the Fairbanks area, bought her own Peterbilt truck, and became an owner-operator. She named her company Arctic Fox Trucking, reclaiming the nickname that had followed her for over a decade and turning it into something that was entirely hers. The woman who had once been told she was hired to be decorative and who went unpaid for years now owned her own rig and ran her own business in one of the harshest operating environments on the planet. She has been frank about what she wants from this chapter of her life. She has said she is exactly where she wants to be. Not a fleet of trucks. Not a payroll full of employees. Not an empire. Just her tanker, the road to Prudhoe Bay, and the drive back to Fairbanks. After everything, the fame, the danger, the heartbreak, the decade under cameras, what she chose was the simplicity of the work itself. Her life beyond the truck is equally full. On her Alaska property, she breeds and rescues horses, including Tennessee Walkers, Gypsy Vanners, and miniature horses. She has spoken openly about the emotional weight that comes with it, including the heartbreak of losing a foal and a 2024 injury when one of her horses stepped on her leg. She channels some of those experiences into music, using a creative app to write songs that process what she goes through. She maintains an active presence online, runs a YouTube channel with live streams, warns her followers about impersonation scams targeting her name, and she lent her voice to a trucking video game in which she appears as a playable character. In every sense, she remained fully in the game during the years people assumed she had left it. And then came 2025, and the twist nobody quite expected. After 8 years off the air, the History Channel announced that Ice Road Truckers was returning for Season 12. Lisa Kelly was coming back with it. The revived season premiered on October 1, 2025, and for longtime fans it was a reunion with the driver who had been the emotional center of the series from the moment she first appeared. But she came back different from the young woman who had debuted 16 years earlier. She returned as a seasoned owner-operator, a business owner, a woman who had never needed television to validate what she did because she had simply kept doing it regardless. She was 44 years old, and the years had only deepened her standing. She slotted in alongside veterans and a new generation of rookies, the experienced hand showing the next group how it is done. Her personal life shifted during those years off camera, too. According to the History Channel's own profile tied to the show's return, Lisa went through a divorce from the husband she had married in 2008, the man she had met while buying a motorcycle back in 2004. The demands of her life on the road, combined with a partner who lived very differently, eventually pulled the marriage apart. She has since found a new relationship with a fellow trucker, someone who, in the channel's own framing, speaks her language, who lives in the same world she does, rather than watching it from the outside. Her net worth is most commonly estimated at around $500,000, a figure that surprises people who assume a decade of television fame must have produced fabulous wealth. But it reflects the honest arithmetic of this life. For the first 2 to 3 years on the show, she received nothing from the production. Even at the height of the series, the money in Ice Road Trucking was never extravagant. One of her co-stars on the revived season put the math plainly. A driver on that route might earn between $75,000 and $100,000 in a season, but only by working to the bone for 3.5 months in brutal cold on roads that can kill. That is not easy money. That is hazard pay, earned one frozen mile at a time. Lisa Kelly built a stable, grounded life out of one of the hardest professions on earth. She owns her truck. She owns her business. She has her horses and her property in Alaska. She is not famous rich, and she has never pretended otherwise. The fortune was never the point. If money had been the goal, there were 1,000 simpler ways to chase it than driving a fuel tanker to the edge of the Arctic Ocean in the dead of winter. She did it because she loves it. She did it because the road, the cold, the weight of the machine, and the challenge of the conditions are simply who she is. There is something quietly extraordinary about a person who becomes famous for doing the thing they were already doing, and then, when the fame recedes, simply continues doing it. No reinvention. No desperate chase for the next camera. No fading. Just the Dalton Highway, the Peterbilt, and the long drive north. The Arctic Fox never stopped running. She was just doing it where the cameras couldn't follow.